Hi, welcome to the Rhode Island Wave Spotlight Series. I'm your host, Scott Nerney. With me today is Allan Carter, who you may have known only by maybe in the picture, maybe in the writing, but he is a film critic for the Rhode Island Wave, doing some articles for us each month. He stopped in at the amazing Cowesett Inn to have a little conversation. Welcome to the show.
Glad to be here.
Other than the film, let's go back a little bit. Tell me a little background so people kind of get an idea of who you are as you're talking to them about films.
Born and raised in Providence, Broad Street School, Roger Williams Junior High, Hope High School. And after Hope High School, I wanted to be an actor. So I went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. That's a great name, isn't it? American Academy of Dramatic Arts. It impressed me then, too.
Sounds like you'd have to pay someone off to get in there.
Actually not. Not in those days, anyway. But I was impressed by it because Lauren Bacall had gone there, and Edward G. Robinson, and Kirk Douglas, and maybe
Not when you were there, or?
No, about 5 years before I got there, Grace Kelly had gone there.
Wow.
And 2 years before I got there, Robert Redford had been there. The Academy, we all sat in chairs, and there were big frames with the pictures of all the graduates, so we could see them back to, I think the school started around 1910 or so. And it was right in the theater district. In fact, the building was part of a theater. And one of the classrooms, if you opened the door and looked down, you could watch the play going on down in the theater where people were paying money to go.
Oh, wow.
I love New York, and I loved studying acting. And after a year, I decided I wasn't going to be an actor.
No.
There weren't any jobs, and I wasn't that good. But I had a wonderful time. So I came back to Providence. I took some wonderful adult ed courses at Brown with an anthropology teacher, Dwight Heath. And he was like my first mentor, and I just took to anthropology and loved studying it. I did a paper for him, and then I decided, well, maybe I'll really go to college. And so I went to URI, and after that I went back to New York, got a job at NBC in the mailroom, working my way up the corporate ladder. 6 months later, I left, still in the mailroom. Came back to Rhode Island and got a graduate assistantship and started teaching freshman English a couple doors down from the room where I'd had it 5 years before. And got my master's in English and loved teaching. So the first day I started to teach as a grad assistant, this was the job. Before that, I really didn't know what I was going to do. And after that, I taught for 3 years at the University of Bridgeport. And then it was a community college starting west of Chicago, the College of DuPage. It was a great school to work at. It was only 3 years old, so we were involved in making the college. And you had that real sense of accomplishment.
Sure.
But then we came back. My wife and I came back to Rhode Island, where we'd spent most of our summers.
You have to come home.
Got to come home, living in Kingston and loving it. So that's it. Along the way, I was fascinated by film, and one of the reasons I went out to the school in Illinois was because they promised that I could teach film. And so that's what my passion was. So I taught freshman English, and I taught writing courses, and I taught humanities, but I always taught film. And that's why I'm writing a film column for the Rhode Island Wave.
So when you say you taught film, is it teaching it from putting the film together, or the concept to delivery, or the playwright side, or the acting, or, and yes could be the right answer?
It's kind of everything.
Okay.
I did teach screenwriting as a separate course. I usually focused on the story and the way they tell the story, and I would try to help the students to visually see the visuals and how important the visuals were. Why is the camera down here for that scene? Why isn't the camera moving? one of the things I dislike about television, whenever they have dance, they're constantly moving the camera. Now, if you go back and watch Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, the camera stays still and they move.
Right.
But the way to cover up bad dancing is to move the camera. And so that's what you know, Shall We Go, whatever those shows are, that's what they do. The same thing with music. If you look at the musicals and you look at Singing in the Rain, which is justifiably so the best of all musicals, if you look at it and you look at the camera doesn't move very much. But if you look at American Idol, although they're constantly moving the camera,
yeah,
they're constantly moving the lights, boom, 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 boom. And for me, let me sit down and listen to the singer. Let me sit down and hear what they're saying. So I like when you can watch something and let your imagination go, rather than having the camera moving around a bit. So that's the kind of thing I talk to. And they, you know, in the last few years, they look at me like they only know camera movements.
Right.
They only know videos. You know, they only know all of that stuff. So it's like it's difficult for them to see the point.
And you're right. When you're if you're watching a show or you're like an actual play, I do a lot of theater from the audience perspective.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there watching, my version of it.
Right.
I know someone who is in a balcony or on the other side of the stage is seeing a different version of it, a different angle, maybe seeing some different facial expressions. To me, that intrigues me that they're speaking to everyone in the audience. Versus, we're looking here at you, and all of a sudden I got the close up on me, and then coming back over you. So you bring up some great points from an interesting perspective.
Well, it's the music too. I mean, when PBS will put an orchestra on, okay, so we'll see the orchestra, and the camera keeps focusing in on this violinist or that one over there. Whereas if we're in the audience, we're doing that ourselves if we want to. I find it distracting because I really want to hear, concentrate. Plays are interesting. Next time you go to see a play, most plays now are only 2 acts, but they used to have a lot of 3-act plays. When you watch the first act from the left side of the stage, the second act from the right side, and the third act from the balcony, you really get a different sense of what the play's about. Because you see how they move, you see the costumes different, you see the profile, the faces and stuff. So
I always feel that one of the things that I try to do when I go to a play is watch the people who aren't the focus.
Yes.
The expressions that they're giving, because they're not just sitting there looking at the person like waiting for their line.
Right.
The great actors on plays or on stage are like giving realistic reactions and judgments and moving body language to go along with. They're really in this conversation.
Yeah.
But you wouldn't see that on a broadcast.
And you can see that in a movie as well. If you watch the person that's being spoken to. Two of my favorite actors are Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart. There's a wonderful scene in The Big Sleep where she's sitting on a desk and talking to him, and she's like scratching her leg, and he says, "Go ahead and scratch," and she pulls up her skirt and scratches and pulls the skirt down. It's wonderful because as an audience we're watching her do that little mannerism, which is distracting, because anytime you move and somebody else is speaking, it steals the scene from that person. And so she does the thing with the leg. It's a beautiful scene, So yeah.
Well, as a kind of stage style, we like to end a lot of our interviews with a little tribute to James Lipton. So I'll ask you a few of his favorite questions and a couple of others.
Lipton. Right.
What's your favorite word?
My favorite what?
Word.
Word. I'll tell you what my least favorite word is.
Okay.
Unbelievable. The guy hits a home run at the end of the game. Unbelievable! He hit a home run. A guy dunks the ball, the winning guy. It's unbelievable. What do you mean it's unbelievable? He's getting $15 million to dunk that ball. What do you mean it's unbelievable? Yeah, and you just saw it. How can that be unbelievable? It's unbelievable. If I did it, then it would be unbelievable. What other words you got?
What sound or noise do you love?
Do I love the ocean?
Okay.
I love walking along the beach and listening to the ocean. I don't know why people wear music when they're walking along the pier, because the ocean speaks to me.
What profession would you least like to do?
An accountant. I
Okay.
can't sit at a desk very long. I would have been a poster child for ADD, there's no doubt about it. And so anything where I had to sit and just do the same thing every day, I wouldn't like. Having said that, I took 2 accounting courses at URI and I love them. I don't like math, but I liked accounting. So I like accountants. I don't want to say anything against accountants out there.
We have a few that read the paper.
I guess so.
They're not reading your column. If you could do something knowing you couldn't fail, what would it be?
I think be in the movies, go back to acting, and get my big break.
Okay.
I think that would be it.
And lastly, if you could go back and tell your 12-year-old self something, what would it be?
Do what you did. Do what I did. Because I have very few regrets. I had a family that let me make decisions as to what I was going to do. I once said to my father, I said, when I wanted to go to acting school, you said go. I said, when I wanted to not go to acting school and go to college, you said go. I said, when I wanted to go to graduate school, you said go. I said, well, why didn't you ever give me any advice? He said, I didn't get through the 8th grade. What am I going to tell you? You knew I would support you. And that's all I can say is, as a 12-year-old, I knew whatever happened, I would have my family's support.
Okay. Words to live by.
Yeah.
Alan, I want to thank you very much for
Pleasure
coming
to
by
meet
the
you.
Spotlight.
Yeah, and
We'll be looking for your columns.
all right, and anytime I'll come in and chat with you. Take care.
Absolutely. Love to have you back.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.